And then right now tonight, 105.5 The Roar. Also joining me is other co-host, Big Houston Burnett. But I would also give him another title. I'm going to give you the Executive Party Planning Committee lead chair.
Yeah, we all know who the fun one is out of this bunch. Okay, we all know we're bringing the hits to the people tonight. Finally, live on air. This is huge. You know, this is a long time in the making for us, a long time in the making for me. So I'm stoked, man. Let's get into it.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys coming on. If you don't know anything about Big Al and myself, we have been doing this show for just about 3 years now. Again, started on Facebook, moved to YouTube, and now we're on The Roar. Houston was a caller, and he had such great insight that I said, we got to get this guy on the show. And so he is our expert analyst as well. But again, we are in Pronk Studios tonight in Greenville, South Carolina. Since 2019, Pronk Studios has been giving podcasters like myself the opportunity to amplify their message to thousands of people around the globe. Not only can Pronk produce, record, edit, and distribute your show, but they can also help you with a full social media strategy to promote it too. All you have to do is show up and start talking. That's it. Go to pronk.tv to learn more. That is PRONK.TV. Again, like I said, you can come in. It's a full service. You can come in, you can use their equipment, and then walk away. You can do the editing and graphics like I do, or you can come in. They'll do everything for you. You don't have to worry about it. That's what. So, what you guys think about the studio tonight, Al?
This is awesome. I was not expecting all this when we got in here. There's TV screens everywhere. There's cameras pointing all at you, microphones all over the place, high quality equipment, good stuff. They would definitely take care of you over here.
I mean, yeah, I would have to echo that sentiment. This camera that's pointed at my face can probably see deep into my pores. Not sure if that's good or a bad thing, but it's first class, first quality. This is amazing.
You know, I am missing the brand new neon lights. If you've seen my latest YouTube video, the neon lights, where's my neon lights? That's the one thing I got to bring next time to the show.
Nitpick everything.
You know, I mean, yeah, but it is a beautiful, I mean, better than a local news network, better than ESPN. We'll just say that.
Better than my bathroom at home.
Oh yeah, definitely better than the man cave for sure. But you know, we want to say thank you so much to Ramona for sticking by and producing the show, but also to Ben Milstead and John Hennis for allowing us to be on the Roar. We only have an hour, so we need to get into it. They're not crazy enough to give YouTubers 3 hours, but they are crazy enough to give us 1 hour. So we need to get into it. And I wanted to start off. Again, we're not going to talk about everything. We're going to talk about the thing, and that is Clemson versus Georgia for an entire hour. That's what you've got with us. And I think no better place to start than the depth chart discussion and controversy, if you will. I want to start with Al because this is a big deal because Kirby Smart has not really released a depth chart.
Right.
If you were a coach, would you be playing games with a depth chart? Because I will say this too, Dabo pretty much released a copy and paste of what he did pre-fall. So is the gamesmanship going on there?
Well, of course, there's gamesmanship going on. That's going to happen every week, I think. Especially in the COVID world we live in, the rules change. All right, simple as that. But look, Georgia came out. They said, we're not going to release a depth chart. Well, whatever, that's fine. And Dabo kind of releases, like you said, a copy and paste version of what they had. There's a bunch of ors on there. Nobody really knows what that means or if that's even the case anymore because it hasn't really changed since spring practice. So I don't necessarily get into those type of games. I don't think it matters. Once you get on the field, I think the players play, and that's kind of where it goes. But yeah, definitely gamesmanship going on behind the scenes.
Let's go ahead and get into those ors. We'll start with the offense, and we'll say left tackle. Okay, Jordan McFadden, we kind of knew that. Mm-hmm. Left guard, Matt Bockhorst. Center, here's your or, Mason Trotter or Hunter Rayburn. That's your first or. Right guard, Will Putnam. Right tackle, Walker Parks. Tight end, Braden Galloway or Davis Allen. Wide receiver, Joseph Ngata or Frank Ladson Jr. Quarterback, DJ Uyana-Lele. Running back, Lynn J. Dixon or Kobe Pace. All these ors, as Allen said. Wide receiver, Justin Ross. And then wide receiver, and that would be slot wide receiver. But wide receiver, Frank Ladson or E.J. Williams. Now, we saw Frank Ladson there twice. That's something that stuck out to me. So apparently that means he's going to be on the field a lot this season. What do you think, Houston?
Yeah, I think Frank Ladson, you're going to be talking about one of the deepest wide receiving corps in the country. I think Ross's move to slot is a big deal, but I also think that you can move him around the field, not just exclusively to slot, but you can also put Frank Ladson there as well. It's one of those things where nobody's talking about the ors on the wide receiving depth chart just because they're so good. I mean, we're going to hear names that we didn't hear as much last year, like Ngata, who was hurt pretty consistently, a Joe who is going to be, he's going to be a stud. Can't wait to watch him play. So I think that's the thing that sticks out the most with the wide receivers, but I know that there's some other ors that we probably could jump into as far as the rest of the depth chart goes.
Yeah, I'm looking at Justin Ross, as you mentioned. 1,800 yards, 17 touchdowns, and in his last 2 years, obviously last year was a scratch, so really 1 year. But Al, 6'4", 205, slot receiver. Is that a real deal? Is that real?
It's going to be real for Clemson this year, from all the accounts that we've been getting. It's very unusual for a guy that size to be in the slot, but as a matter of fact, this guy doesn't move like a guy that's 6'4", 225 or whatever it was that you said he was listed at. This is a guy that can move. He can get open. He has the quick twitch ability to do that and play that position. And I think if he's able to do that, Clemson is going to be at a huge advantage over pretty much anybody they play because he's going to be a matchup nightmare.
And going back to Frank Ladson, I really want to talk about him because I don't think he gets a lot of airtime for sure. He's really like a big, deep threat guy. I have him down as kind of a speed guy. I want to see him stretch the field and help open up that defense for Georgia, get them around, get them away from being clumped up and open up other lanes for maybe other people. Maybe not so much for himself, but what he does away from getting the ball, I think, is going to be key. Is Frank Ladson for you a key player, Houston?
Oh, absolutely, Frank Ladson. But I think one person that we haven't mentioned at all tonight that he's not getting enough love, in my opinion, is E.J. Williams.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think E.J. Williams. I mean, Frank Ladson. Don't get me wrong. He can be a speed guy. He can stretch the field. We've seen him make some unbelievable catches in the past, especially in his freshman year. But E.J. Williams had a great finish to his 2020 season, and I feel like he's going to have just as much, if not as more impact than Frank Ladson. And that's not a knock on Ladson. This is a deep, you're going to hear this a lot. It's a deep wide receiving core, and there's going to be a lot of names that you're going to hear that are going to have great seasons this year.
You said deep wide receiving core. Let's just keep going. And let's talk about Bo Collins. I mean, this is a guy who originally played 2 years in high school with DJU. And so I'm really thinking that's going to be a big deal. He already connected on a touchdown in the spring game, so that's just a little bit there. And he was the third best player in the state of California in his class. I don't think you can keep him off the field. And I think considering there is 2 years of experience with DJ, that's big for me. Al? Yeah,
I don't necessarily disagree with that. I don't know that it's going to be kind of in prime time here against Georgia. I don't know that that's the case. I think Bo has been coming off some kind of injury as well, if I'm not mistaken, the last few practices. So I don't know that he's going to get a lot of love here from the beginning, but I think he's one of those guys that, again, when you have that relationship, a lot of times a wide receiver-quarterback relationship is a big deal, and it can trump talent at times. So, yeah, I think you're going to see a lot from Bo Collins throughout the year. He's going to mature and be one of the go-to guys maybe next season. I just don't know that this year he's going to be, the star because there's too many people ahead of him, honestly.
Yeah. And that, I think, is a strength. I won't give you a tip to what I'm going to be talking about later on in the matchup, but I do think that is a huge strength in the depth of Clemson's wide receiver core, right, and that the fact that they should be relatively getting healthy, especially those starting three for sure. Let's switch over to the group that we have to talk about. I was not 100% wanting to speak about them, but it is the biggest question mark, I guess, going into this season, which is the offensive line. Now, originally, we saw this offensive lineup, and it's exactly the same as pre-fall as now post-fall going into Georgia. Is that real? Because the past 2 weeks, we've been hearing that Bockhorst is now taking snaps at center. Now we're seeing that Trotter and Rayburn are back, at least on the paper. Is that real or not, Houston?
Well, we talked about gamesmanship earlier, and I believe you'll probably see Rayburn or Trotter maybe start, but it would not be uncommon to see maybe Bockhorst get out there early on, take some snaps. As Dabo mentioned in his presser, everyone that's available is he's available to do a lot. We're talking about we could see people shift around, and Bockhorst playing center probably would be one of those things that they may do if they have to do that early on.
Yeah, I like Bockhorst. I mean, I'll say this. A lot of people have been picking on Mason Trotter. Mm-hmm. A lot of people say, oh, man, why would you even put him at center? And they just look at his height and weight. Mason, right, if you listen to this, I'm about to pump you up here. His height and weight, yes. Is it an issue? Is it not? If you're in the NFL, maybe so. 6'2", 285, not really what you see on any offensive lineman in the NFL. Most of them 6'3", 4, 5. Most of them 300 to 310. So 285 and 6'2" is definitely smaller. But I think a lot of people forget that he played 46 snaps of the 77 snaps against Notre Dame in the season. I'm not talking about the ACC championship game. I'm talking about when DJ was out there for the first time against a big team in an away game. He was there for more than half the snaps.
Sure.
So that has to be a big deal. I wonder if that gives you more confidence, as Dabo Swinney's point, as Robbie Caldwell, to say, you know what, he's been out there. We've seen it. We need to trust the guy that we've already used last year. What do you think?
Yeah, this is a very typical thing of Dabo and company. They like to go with the elder statesmen. They like to go with the guys they trust, that they know to carry out the assignments that they're supposed to carry out. And Trotter is a guy that can do that for him, as he's proven in action before. Yeah, I think the size can certainly be a concern. I mean, especially against Georgia. When you talk about it might be a problem in the NFL, well, when they're playing against Georgia, they're playing guys that are going to the NFL. So, yeah, that could be an issue for sure. I think to get your best 5 on the field, I believe Bockhorst, to me, is the best candidate. But, again, the snaps have got to be there, and I'm not sure which one has snapping the most consistently in practice. I think that has a lot to do with it, because DJ's got to get the ball. He shouldn't have to worry about where the ball is going to be after it's snapped before he gets, to make his reads and whatnot. So yeah, it can be a problem, but he's also proven at times he can do the job, and I think he'll do it for the entirety of the season. I don't think that's an issue. Just in this game against this type of talent, it could be.
Now, Houston, I want to know, we're going to switch gears to the defense, but before we do that, who's a player where you got to say, hey, you know what, get your rest Thursday night, Friday night. I need you. We need you to show up.
Well, the name that no one has mentioned, and I think we're going to see this throughout the season, little old freshman named Will Shipley. I mean, look, and this it's not a slight to Lynn J. Dixon or Cubby Pace. I'm sure they're going to get their carries and they're going to do well. I trust that Pace and Dixon are two outstanding backs, but Shipley has been turning heads all preseason long. He is a 5-star for a reason. He's been showing out, and it would not surprise me if his presence is not made known early within the first 2 to 3 drives.
Al, agree, disagree? Who you got?
Can I go to my target line here? I agree with Houston. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Will Shipley.
I was just setting you up for that. Perfect.
Play the softball, man. No, yeah, Will Shipley is that kind of athlete. He's that kind of dynamic playmaker. You're going to see a lot from him, whether it be running back, whether it be catching pass out of the backfield, or maybe even in a return type thing. Yeah, I think you're going to see him a lot in this game. Whether he trots out there first or not, it's a different story.
Right. I've actually got Ladson. That's the guy I've been really focusing on as I was going through my notes. As you can see, if you're on Facebook or YouTube right now, hopefully everything's working for you now. But if you can see on the desk, you probably could see behind the curtain, because usually you just see my face. Now you can see the whole table, and you see the amount of notes. And Alan's always like, man, what are you doing with paper? Nobody uses paper anymore. But yes, I still use paper. But I've got Frank Ladson Jr. I think that, again, he could stretch the field in the right ways, and I think the wide receiver core is going to be a huge factor with him leading the way. I really do. I mean, now I'll say we all know that Georgia's going to get Rossed. Okay, we all know that. No, that we all hope that happens. But sure, Ladson will be the next person that torches them, I think.
Yeah.
So that's my hope. Now let's move over to the defense, and who is somebody on that defensive chart? So, again, a lot of oars, especially on the defensive tackles, the strong side linebackers. Trenton Simpson, Malcolm Green, Tyler Venables, Barrett Carter, or nickelback or strong side linebacker. So, is there anybody on there that sticks out to you? Now, key note there, they still have Fred Davis as a starter there. We don't know what they're going to do or not with him. But this guy is somebody who is a Max Prep's first-team All-American when he was a senior in high school. So he is a real-deal cornerback, and it's no surprise to us, because we do recruiting videos on YouTube, no surprise to us that he's up there contending. Now, obviously, off-the-field issues, that's one thing that kind of stuck out to me. Also, the other thing was the strong side linebacker. I was just going to go ahead and put Trenton Simpson and make him an Isaiah Simmons playing every single snap. But I don't see that. So, Houston, what do you think about those things?
Well, I tend to lean, and I'm not sure. I can't say this because I don't have any insider knowledge. I just tend to think that we won't see, unless there's an absolutely dire situation, I don't think we're going to see Fred Davis. But that's speculative. I just want to say that. Don't take my word with a grain of salt. Thinking about the linebacker, I think the biggest underrated strength of this defense is Clemson's linebacking core. You look at the depth that's there. You look at how many people are coming back. You've got Skalski, Spector. You've got Levante Bentley, who we've been salivating to see. You've got Barrett Carter, Trent Simpson, who you're going to hear about all season long. I'm going to let you know about it. So a lot. It's an underrated. I think people are sleeping on that. A lot of people want to talk about Georgia's linebackers. Not enough people are talking about Clemson's linebackers. Those are the ones that really, really jump out to me.
Alan, what do you got?
Yeah, look, I agree with a lot of that. I think the fact that Georgia has a lot of big-time athletes at linebacker is why a lot of people think their linebacking core is better than Clemson's, and it very well could be overall talent-wise. But the fact that we have a guy like Skowski's been there for 6 years, he knows what he's doing. He's the leader of the defense, making the calls, getting everybody in position. That kind of stuff is invaluable to me and makes up for a lot of times athleticism that they may not have. And Spector's a guy that gets often overlooked. I think even by Clemson fans, a guy who is a pretty solid athlete. He's got a nose for the ball. He likes to get in there and hit. Very physical guy. And again, we've talked up Simpson for quite some time. Had to convince our humble co-host or our host that that he's going to make a lot of plays for sure. But yeah, we've got a lot of linebackers I think that can play. Guys that can get in and rotate and still make plays where there's not a lot of drop off.
All right, Tiger fans over on the Roar, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you're watching and tuning in, thank you so much. That's the end of segment number 1. We're going to stick live over on Facebook and YouTube while we go to break on the Roar, and we're going to be back with more Clemson versus Georgia talk after the break. This is the Morgan Thomas Show.
Welcome to Mondays catch a bad rap, but they aren't that bad. Half the morning is spent telling everyone how big your weekend was.
Yes, ma'am.
Then you delete hundreds of emails. Next,
Okay, it sounds like the other two guys got their mics closer to their mouths. Is your mic close to your mouth? Because you sound like you're farther away.
Okay, so Ramona says I sound like I'm farther away, like my mic's nowhere near my mouth.
The other guys sound like they should.
Okay, so she said Allen Houston sound good. Me, I don't. It doesn't sound like I'm this close, which I'm about. I'm about 2 inches away.
Yeah,
4 inches away is what you're supposed to.
I'm getting pretty good. Mark had to get me to move mine earlier. So.
Makes hiring faster
in the mic. That's what you need to do.
All right, so I guess we're still on Facebook and YouTube. You guys probably thought we forgot about you. Al Houston, are you able to get into the comments and see if we have anything going on? We're going to discuss Facebook and YouTube online-only comments during the break. Al, before we do that, though, we have some sponsors that we want to show some love to. If I have my sponsor sheet somewhere.
But the most important thing to note is that
do I have a sponsor sheet? Here we go.
In fact, 4 out of 5 employers.
I want to first up talk about Lana Smith. Tiger fans, Greenville is a wonderful place to call home, and take it from me, a great place to grow your family. The housing market can be extremely competitive, and imitating place. If you don't have the right agent, that's why we recommend our friend and local agent Lana Smith with Live Upstate SC Real Estate. She is a native of Greenville and has been serving the needs of families in the upstate for over 20 years. You need an agent proficient in navigating the world of multiple offers who will put your needs first and guide you through the process. Let Lana help you achieve your real estate goals. Call her today, 864-608-8313, and let's get moving. Again, you see there on the screen, 864-608-8313, and let our friend Lana tell you.
If you're tired of some skinny health coach
telling
you to eat spinach, call the Health Dare.
Audio's messed up.
We're a professional team
Someone
of coaches,
talking over you.
but we've all taken the dare. We have coaches who have reversed their...
Can they hear my... Okay.
That was it, probably.
Yeah. Was that it?
Can you hear us now?
Now I can't hear the... I can't hear the...
I can't hear the roar.
The commercials anymore.
Yeah, you got me. Mark wanted me to turn the commercials down.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So we had the commercials up. Excuse us.
Sorry.
We're still working through. This is our first show in the studio, and if you remember Morgan Thomas Show when we first started, I literally talked for an hour and a half, and Audrey came running down saying the audio doesn't work.
Not good.
And it was literally my best show ever. I don't think I'll ever have a show better than the one nobody heard.
It was because they couldn't hear you.
Yeah.
So do we have any comments, anything about Clemson, Georgia right now, or anything you want to talk about while we're on our behind the scenes break?
We don't have a ton of comments going on right now. Would you like me to talk about who's watching us?
Yeah.
How about that? So right now the first one, is actually my wife, Maribeth. So kudos to my wife for getting in first. Billy Sigmund as well. David Beam with us. Toby Humphreys. Kevron, superfan Kevron Harris with us as always. Jimmy Stamey. Audrey, your wonderful wife is there. David Beam. Let's see. Sonia Dennis. Mark Bryant. Casey Cregan. Nick Cullen. Sean Love. John Hansen as well. So we got a lot of people in there listening. And Billy Sigmund did get in and say that he hopes Ross torches DK, which I think speaks to all Clemson fans because we're all hoping for the same thing there, no doubt about it. You want to go ahead and do another live read? Do we have time for me to do
throw in heating and cooling services?
All right, so we're going to talk about another one of our sponsors, Heating Cooling Services, Inc. They are family-owned and operated, serving Anderson County and surrounding areas since 1980. Heating Cooling Services, Inc. is your residential and commercial comfort expert. Anything from preventative maintenance of your home HVAC system to overhauling a commercial chiller and everything in between. If you want to breathe easier and be nice and cool in your home or business this summer, or warm and cozy in your home or business this winter, give Mark or Jason Trammell a call at Heating Cooling Services, Inc. 864-224-7655. Again, that number is 864-224-7655.
All right, I appreciate that, fellas. It looks like we're getting ready to come back from break, so hang tight.
I'm just going to fade it down.
Thanks. All right, we're back again. The Morgan Thomas Show, live on the Roar, 105.5 and 97.5 FM. And we hope you're listening. And even if you're not in the car, maybe you're listening on the app. If you download the Roar app from the App Store or Play Store, you can listen in to all of the great shows that they have from 6 a.m. all the way to 7 p.m. And now, a little bit of after hours. After Walt, 7 to 8 p.m. will be Mark Childress, Ellis Tolbert, Richmond Weaver, and then ourselves every Thursday night in between Walt and the Jaguars Coaches Show. I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah. It's really cool to be able to finally get on the radio. My grandmother, if she was still living, would be tripping out right now. Like we have our own show, and she would be listening to on the radio. Now, when we left for break, we were talking about the Clemson's defense. I did not want to stop talking about Clemson's defense because I really don't care anything about Georgia.
Sure.
But we will talk about Georgia. I promise you, Dog fans, if you're listening, it's almost past your bedtime. But I wanted to ask, will we have a breakout sacks leader? Will Clemson have a breakout sacks leader? Because I'm seeing, as I'm going through my notes, I'm seeing last year, Skalski, 4 sacks. Spectors, 4 sacks. Murphy, 4 sacks. I think even Brissy, 4 sacks. Everybody had 4 sacks. That's a great even number. I want to see the Furl, 11.5 sacks. I want to see the Bowers, 15.5 sacks. Yep. Hey, man, I want to see Keith Adams, 16 sacks, all-time leader for the season. Yep. For the season. So will Clemson be able to have a star sacks leader this year, or is it going to be more distributed out like it has been, really the past 2 years?
I mean, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me either way. If you think about what's coming back on Clemson's defensive front, XT, KJ, Justin Maskell, Brzee, Murphy, the whole 9 yards, and then, Trenton Simpson, potentially, who can line up and get the edge rush there. There's a lot of potential there to be able to split that up. But, I mean, a lot of people make this defensive line akin to that of 2018. It would not surprise me if you see a couple people make big steps, including XT and KJ this year. I think they're in for big years.
Alan, what do you think? You think it'll be dominated by defensive ends getting to the quarterback, or is it going to be more linebackers? I know Houston was saying the linebacking core is underrated.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the defensive ends. I think Miles Murphy's going to kind of lead the way there. I mean, the guy is a monster, and he's you kind of look at him as a typical edge setter type defensive end, but he's still got pass rush moves and can get to the quarterback. I think he's going to do a lot more of that this year, especially if you have a year more advanced Brzee on the inside taking up blocks, and you've got, of course, Tyler Davis chewing up the middle as well. I think that's going to bode well for Clemson going forward. And of course, I like Hendry, I like Thomas, I like all these other guys as well. I think Murphy is the stud of the group for sure. But I like what Houston said in the fact that he talked about Trenton Simpson getting back there a lot, because I do think he'll get back there a lot. I just think Murphy's going to lead the way.
He is going to be so fast to the quarterback around the edge. I think it's going to be amazing to see. Really, that front seven is the nastiest in college football. You can put that up against any other team right now in the nation, and you got to be pretty confident. Now let's shift over to the secondary. With Davis not being the presumed starter, that puts Mario Goodrich at the potential starting position. Hasn't had as many snaps as someone like Andrew Booth Jr. Is that a cause for concern? Let me just say before we go to Georgia, I put him down as a guy, get your rest tonight, tomorrow night. We need you to show up, Mario Goodrich.
Yeah, look, I like Mario Goodrich. I think he's been kind of a guy for quite some time that I've talked up that maybe others haven't been quite as high on. But I think he's got some ability. I think he's flashed that ability in several games. And I think this is his time to shine. So he's got to show it now or never, right? Or he's going to get passed on the depth chart. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a good year for him, and Georgia will certainly be a good test.
Houston.
I agree with Alan.
Whoa, we have to get a new T-shirt.
Go ahead and print that out too. I agree with Alan. Mario Goodrich has got to do this. There's a lot of young bodies on this team that are looking to prove themselves, and Mario Goodrich is kind of. I'm not making this a negative statement. He's at the end of the line. He's got to make his move here, and I think from what I've heard, he's had a great spring, a great fall camp. I'm hoping that it translates onto the field. We know Booth is going to be an All-American type player, so let's see if we can have somebody, as fans see somebody step up like Mario Goodrich on the other side.
Speaking of at the end of their line, James Skalski, 5-time ACC championship appearances, or 5 appearances, 5-time champion, I believe, right? 5-time ACC champion. He's going to go for a 6th ACC championship. Nobody's ever had 5 now. Nobody's ever had 6 because you can't play that long. But in this crazy world, he will be playing that long, and we look forward to seeing him because when he's on the field, you saw it night and day, Notre Dame versus Notre Dame. Part 1, Part 2. You got to put a lot on Skalski right there because he brings that intensity. He brings that fire to the entire defense. He's the type of guy that will run as fast and as hard as possible into the biggest, baddest offensive lineman and get knocked down and then still scream at him wanting for more. And that just riles everybody up. So, Skalski, we want you to get your rest as well, too. But we know you're going to step up. We know you're going to step up. All right, so let's move over to Georgia. I wish Ramona had like a boo button. Boo, boo, boo. No, but you know what? That's another thing Ben Milstead said I could not have was a soundboard with buttons. Because you remember all the buttons that I got into a few years ago. That was not pretty. Too many buttons. I get too distracted. Then I forget about going on break. All right, so let's go into this. So we're looking at the depth chart. The first thing I see is, again, we don't know. There is no depth chart. I'm looking at ourlads.com. I'm looking at georgiadogs.com. I'm looking at dogsports.com. I'm looking at every dogs.com possible to find a prediction. And it's hard, but I'm trying to weed through it. And the first thing I still look at is obviously Pickens out. Blaylock still recovering. Darnell Washington was supposed to play, has an ankle injury, teases on Instagram Live to his buddies that he's got something for us. Many speculate that he would be playing. And Tyke Smith, a guy who they got a transfer from West Virginia, that they really wanted to come and help that defensive secondary. So is Darnell Washington playing, or should we assume not, or do like Brent Venables and say assume they're all playing?
Yeah, I think I would think that they're preparing for Darnell Washington regardless of if he's stepping out on the field or not. They're probably preparing for as many offensive weapons that Georgia has that may or may not be on the field. We don't know yet. As looking at the depth chart, they haven't released anything. We don't know we only know what long-term injuries they have, and that's George Pickens. They don't have Eric Gilbert this game. And then we've also heard, around the rumor mill, Kyrus Jackson and Jermaine Burton are dinged up. So, to me, that the non-release of the depth chart could be something that, it's gamesmanship, but they also don't want to tip their hand that they may have some depth issues at wide receiver. And that's a serious issue for them.
Al, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. There's a lot of things going around, and nobody ever really knows, and we're not going to know until they step out on the field. Again, Clemson's not even releasing, any of their injuries or who's unavailable till a couple hours before the game, which is unusual for us fans, and we can't get used to it, and we don't like it one bit. No, who does? I mean, we want to know, and we want to know now.
I want to know yesterday.
That's right, absolutely. But yeah, it could certainly be an issue if they lose some depth at wide receiver because they're already thin. They're already, without George Pickens, who's kind of the star of the show, so to speak. I like a guy they have named, I believe it's Arian Smith, a speedster type wide receiver for Georgia. I think he's kind of the key player to watch in that receiving core. I think he's going to try to take the top end off the defense off, especially with our safeties and some of the struggles they had against Ohio State. I think he's going to take some shots down there.
If you're licking your chops as a Georgia Bulldog fan, you're probably licking your chops over the running back core. I mean, you have Zamir White, James Cook, Kendall Milton, Kenny McIntosh, among others. That's a pretty stacked running back group. One that I think anybody in the nation would love to have. Obviously, White's going to be their number one. They're saying that the number 2 is going to be Milton, who's a guy that Clemson went after. So definitely stud, run back 1, run back 2. But don't forget James Cook. As I'm looking into Cook, what the fans on that side of the ball are planning on seeing is James Cook as one of the wide receivers for Saturday. Because guess what? Last year he finished as the 4th best wide receiver on that team. So you've got a running back that really can be a great running back, but also be a great wide receiver as well. And also against a really good team, Alabama had an 82-yard touchdown. Yep. So I'm thinking James Cook is somebody to look out for. Again, also a senior, so he knows what it's like to play in big games. He's been playing in them for quite some time. Houston, does James Cook stick out to you as well, or is there somebody else?
You know, I think the real person that sticks out to me is how JT Daniels fares in this game. I know that we're probably going to talk about quarterback a little later, but the running game's going to be there. I think the heavy part of this defensive game plan is stopping Georgia's run and forcing them to pass the ball. The goal is probably to make JT Daniels throw the ball, I would probably say somewhere along the lines of 30, 35 times. That's a problem for Georgia because they don't want to do that. And then we've seen JT Daniels, yeah, he makes some great throws. I mean, I'm not doubting his talent. He's a first-round draft talent. However, he has had some struggles, and you know, if you've got a pair of eyes and watched the Cincinnati game last year, he might have had a ton of yards. But that team struggled to win, and that team struggled in the clutch against a team that they should have overwhelmed.
Are we still on offense? Can we go to defense, or are we just talking about key players on offense right
now?
Well,
I want to go ahead and talk about – I want to hit on what Houston just said.
Sure.
Which is real key, I think. Everybody on the Georgia side of the ball is talking about those last 4 games of the season. Last 4 games of the season, Mississippi State barely won. Now this is because JT Daniels started at this point. They got rid of, you know, the whatever Walt likes to make fun of, you know, Stetson Bennett. But
right.
Mississippi State win by 7. Okay, they blew out South Carolina. Who can't blow out South Carolina? Moving on. Which actually they historically they have had problems. So I'll take that back. But again, Mississippi State ended 4-7 record. South Carolina 2-8 record. Congratulations, guys! You're getting your offense together against terrible teams.
Sure.
The SEC, it just means more. Just means more losses. Missouri 5-5. Not even a winning record there. The other Tigers. That's not the Tigers you're going to play on Saturday. Let me put it this way: these Tigers do not wear gold and black. They wear orange and purple, and they are coming for you. Now, Cincinnati, definitely a better team, 9-1. But as you mentioned, you know, didn't really take that game over till late. So Houston. Should dog fans, you know, be touting that schedule?
I mean, look, I wouldn't. And here's the other thing too. Like, I think Georgia fans think that they're going to just do what they did in 2014 against Clemson. Mm-hmm. That
be careful.
I'd be willing to say that that's not going to happen on Saturday. That Todd Gurley's not walking through that door. Nick Chubb is not walking through that door. You think about the running back core on that team. Mm-hmm. And I was there in Athens that night. It was a rough night. Gurley, Marshall, Chubb, Sony Michel, and Daniel Harrion, and it was just one after the other. Plus, you know, the Mecole Hardmans of the world. They had Jeb Blazevich. It was hard. They could have trotted. They literally trotted out, you know, a second or third street quarterback, Mason Houston, or I think was his name, and he didn't have to do anything. Mm-hmm. That's not a luxury this time around, and there's a clear game plan this time that Clemson can, if they can get after the run game and force them. It's honestly like what South Carolina did in 19. If you force them to throw it and make them kind of uncomfortable in the pocket, you got a real chance to win.
8-2, 6 wins against teams with a 500 or less win percentage there. Al, you were wanting to go over to the defensive side of the ball. I was looking at it. I mean, obviously, it's like elite defense versus elite defense. But they have some holes, just like Clemson has some holes as well, we think. But Al, what were you wanting to say about defense?
Look, I was just wanting to talk about a key player on defense, and I think that's Adam Anderson. I know we're up against a break here, so I'll just give you a quick thought on this. Is Adam Anderson, he's like he's a real quick titch, basically glorified defensive end. I think they use him as technically linebacker in their 3-4 scheme. But this guy's got incredible bend. He's unbelievably explosive, and I think this guy has a chance to impact this game, not necessarily on an every down basis. He's a little bit smaller for that. I guess he's around 230, 240, something like that. But when it comes to third and long situations, if Clemson is not able to get several yards, whether running the ball or short passes or something like that, I think he has a chance to impact the game in a big way getting after DJ.
Houston, what's your thoughts?
Well, you know, I think the thing that we're not talking about is what kind of depth they're looking at in their secondary.
Mm-hmm. Big time.
You know, you got Darion Kendrick, you know, certain Clemson fans have certain feelings about him.
Once a Tiger, always a Tiger.
Once a Tiger is always a Tiger, right? And you're missing Tyke Smith. We don't know. I mean, they're losing a ton. Georgia's losing a lot of guys. They lost Tyson Campbell, several other guys on that defensive secondary. So what's that going to look like? Is that depth going to be there this time around?
Yeah, I was going to say that too. You look at Louis Cine. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Cine. Sign. Louis Sign. But I watched the highlights of Florida, Georgia. I watched the game, and then I went back and watched the highlights to kind of refresh my memory. He was nowhere to be found. He was blown up all over the field. I mean, Kyle Trask just picked his, just had his way, picked apart number 17 there. So be on the lookout for that. Excuse me, number 16 for Georgia. Be on the lookout for him because I would be passing against him all the time. Hey, we're up to break. All right, everyone, we're going to take a break. We're going to be back. We're going to continue our talk, Clemson versus Georgia. More Georgia talk, more Clemson talk, more in-depth study. And on the last segment, we're going to give you our matchup keys and give you our score prediction. All right, we'll see you after this.
You're clear.
Thanks, Ramona.
All clear.
All right, thanks, Al, for that hint there.
Yeah.
See, we're working together.
You're good.
Yeah. If you're watching on Facebook, I don't. Mark, I don't know. I think YouTube fell out on us. Just giving you a heads up. I think YouTube fell out, but Facebook is going strong.
Yeah, it is.
We've had a great show. If you're watching over on Facebook, this is actually in between the breaks for the Roar. So we're live on the radio, and
let me get that out.
And we're gonna do some live reads real quick.
Yeah. Let me get Charleston Sports Pub up here. So if you are looking for a great atmosphere and good food, you have to check out Charleston Sports Pub. They are a premier sports bar location in South Carolina with locations in Clemson, Greenville, Goose Creek, James Island, Mount Pleasant, Somerville, and West Ashley. Watch all the games while you have fun playing all their games. When we were there, when everybody was there, when Alan and mainly Morgan were there, they saw T. Higgins signing autographs. They have amazing wings. And they, played the back nine of Pebble Beach in a simulator. So it's all in the same place.
Mark doesn't like to talk about how I beat him.
Oh yeah, I mean, I take your word for it. I wasn't present for that, so I can't say anything. But Charleston Sports Pub is great, and just go visit them. They are spectacular.
Actually, Houston, I'm sorry. I wrote that ad read as if I was reading it.
Oh man.
So I just set you up for failure.
Thank you. You really did, Morgan. I appreciate that.
And we do have YouTube. By the way, Mark's already going to slap me across the face because we do have YouTube. We got 22 strong over on YouTube. We're getting closer, edging closer and closer to 100 watching live, and who knows, the millions and millions watching around the world or listening around the world.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because there is the app.
Shout out to the folks. Not every name them. I have a small contingent listening in the Philadelphia, Mount Laurel, New Jersey area tonight.
Right.
Excellent.
So
nice.
I'm feeling pretty good.
Got a little silent there. I don't know if they heard you. Might want to.
No, they heard me.
Okay.
Hello, everyone.
He broadcasts.
Yeah, I broadcast pretty good. Yeah. It's okay.
We got some more people watching on Facebook. I want to shout out Rob Cheek, Toby Humphreys, the man formerly known as Four Paws Bill Lanham is with us as well. It's good to have Four Paws Bill in there with us. Hart Vaughn has got in, and Jimmy Hanna also in. My dad, finally. Thanks for joining us, Dad. Where have you been?
Also, shout out to Casey the Beef Cregan. I wasn't able to say that earlier. Great guys. They produce some great content over at Seldom Used Reserve.
Again, we want to thank everybody here at Pronk in this beautiful studio. If you see it and you're a content creator, you've got to be like, hey, let me use Pronk. If you're in Greenville area, in the upstate area, you're a content creator. It's not just for us, not an exclusive studio. You can take advantage of this. So, and it doesn't have to be college football either. They have like 30 different shows of like cooking, The Bachelor. I mean, all kinds of different shows out there. And you can talk about whatever your heart's desire, because that is the key point too. You need to talk about what you're passionate about. Let me do one more read here. Tiger Sports Shop. We don't just dress for success, we TS for success. The Tiger Sports Shop is where we shop. We practically are sponsors for them since day one because we always wear their clothes, even when we walk around. So if you're in Clemson, 364 College Avenue or 11. Welcome back in. It's the Morgan Thomas Show, again with Big Al, Alan Adams. Al?
Yeah, man.
This is the last segment.
Still here, ready to rock. We got to get this thing done.
We haven't screwed it up yet. Houston,
yet.
you're doing great.
Just ready and
Everybody's in the comments talking about how perfect and amazing your analysis is. I'm just bragging on
per
you.
usual.
And I will say, everybody's in the comments also talking about, do you guys know who's playing? Do you guys know who's starting? I wish I could say yes. I wish I could say yes to that. I can't. I wish I could say, yes, this person is going to be starting at cornerback. Yes, this person is going to be starting at defensive tackle. I wish I could say that, but I can't. I also can't say it for Georgia, and I think it is important. This game is so key. If you go out and you automatically say, hey, I'm going to say all my players that are out, that is a psychological advantage or disadvantage for either side. So, again, I wouldn't necessarily do it, and I can understand why they keep it tight to the chest, but we're going to see it closer to game time. We're going to know for sure. So hang tight. You know who will know? Mark Childress on the Tailgate Show. He'll know. If you listen to him, he will know by then. Maybe he won't, because he's kind of early on. Maybe he still won't. Maybe it'll still be a game time decision.
Sure.
You won't see him until they dress out and walk out on the field. But, all right, so we're talking about the matchup. We already talked about Clemson's offense, defense. We talked about a little bit of Georgia's offense, defense. We have about 15 minutes left. Let's talk about the matchup. And here's my thing. Let's start on the defensive side. Houston alluded to it. They've lost 4 top players in their secondary. Now, they did replace it with DK. Not a bad replacement. 5-star guy. And they do have 5-star guys. Trevon Walker, Adam Anderson, as Alan said, 5-star recruit. Nakobe Dean, Nolan Smith, and again, DK. So they've got, at least for that starting lineup, very stacked. So, for the secondary, Houston, let's get into it a little more. Losing that many top players in your secondary, while Clemson seems to return everybody for their 6th and 7th year, that's got to be a winning factor, or at least a slight advantage.
I mean, you think about what Clemson's bringing back at wide receiver versus that unknown in Georgia's secondary. Doesn't seem like a great strategy to me, Bob, but let's see how that plays out. I think that's actually probably one of the biggest keys, at least offensively for Clemson, is how they can stretch the field against Georgia's back 4, back 5, whatever you want to say. How Clemson can handle the pressure, obviously, and then how they can stretch the field. And look, I feel like that is an amazingly favorable matchup for the Tigers. So that's kind of the big key for me.
Alan, Clemson, and I'm going to say the 4-letter word, ESPN, FPI. I know everybody hates it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to literally be blamed for jinxing. 69% to Clemson right now.
I'll allow
that. Is that crazy?
No, I don't think it's crazy at all. I think Clemson is the better team on paper. I think they have the better quarterback, the more talented quarterback, without a doubt. So no, I don't think that's unreasonable. It's just we don't know exactly who's going to be in this game, who's not. How does that affect the game? We already know for sure, or allegedly for sure, that George Pickens is not going to be in there anyways. And that's a big loss. I think Georgia fans were talking about that a lot early on, and how are they going to survive something like that? But Georgia's a lot the same as Clemson. They don't rebuild, they reload. So it's kind of next man up mentality type thing, and they've got a lot of talent back there. They recruited well. We talk about it all the time. They win that battle almost every year, it seems like. So yeah, they're not hurting for talent to come in play.
As we were getting ready to start the show, I heard Walt on the radio saying that the Tyler Davis news potentially lowers that 2-touchdown win that he predicted to more of a 10 to 13 point touchdown or less, so less than 2 scores. So I'm looking at like 10. A touchdown and a field goal, I guess, is the only other option you have. Houston, the spread is -3 in favor of the Tigers. Considering it's in Charlotte, home away from home, are you confident in that they'll be able to go past the spread? Don't give me your prediction, but are you confident?
Yeah, I feel pretty confident. I think, and this is bound to change before Saturday's game. Nobody's talked about how the line has not moved pretty much at all since it was opened in March. Right. I think it was opened as 3.5. It's just down to 3, and it's held that way for about a month.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there's going to be some Georgia bettors out there that get the line down, maybe even as close to a 1 point, even a pick 'em for some of this. It's a big time game, but I think the longevity of that 3.5 point spread tells me something that Vegas knows something about this, and that's been holding steady. So I think Clemson can go over. If I were a heavy person that laid some funds down on this game, I would probably take that number.
Ooh, whoa, wait a minute now. Okay, if you enjoy the color orange, if you are maybe a Clemson fan, if your heart lies in God's countries, in the foothills, in the Blue Ridge Mountains, I would not advise this, because my dad has always told me, never bet with your heart. My heart bleeds orange, so don't bet with your heart. Al, -3, does that make you want to bet with your heart?
Well, I always want to bet with my heart. Whether you do or not is a different story, but I can tell you this. Hypothetical situation, of course. Maybe one time I did bet with my heart, and it paid off in a big way.
All right, so you have historical evidence to the contrary of what my dad would say.
Absolutely.
Now, I will say, don't bet with your heart when it's like a 49-point spread. I wouldn't bet with anybody. I just stay away from those at all, And there might be some this year for Clemson, because they are heavy favorites, I'm sure, for the rest of the season, which we did talk. Even if Clemson loses, which we're not saying they will, but even if Georgia loses, they're set up with the rest of the schedule being one that is manageable for them to run the table and then make it to the SEC championship. Now, there's one team that can win their conference championship, and there's one team that's proven that has a head coach that doesn't know how to win their conference championship, and that would be Kirby Smart. He doesn't really know how to do that as frequently as Dabo Swinney does. I say that's a big factor. Coaching, Dabo Swinney, Al, you and I made the long trip to Glendale, and that mistake. The environment was with Clemson. The momentum was with Clemson. The time was with Clemson. The quarterback was with Clemson. The injuries weren't with Clemson.
Right.
And then the onside kick was not with Clemson. But out of the ashes came the Phoenix, and then they won in Tampa the very next season. So I'm saying that Dabo Swinney has corrected and knows how to beat how to win big games. And he knows how to win big games where it's not his issue. Now, we'll say there were some coaching issues in the most recent playoffs that nobody likes to remember.
Yeah.
But do you think coaching versus coaching matchup, Al, you got to go with the team in orange?
Oh, that's easy. Yeah, that's easy. And it's not to say that they're immune to mistakes, because they're not. As a matter of fact, when we won in Tampa, I thought the clock management at the end of the game was an atrocity. It seems like on one play they let almost 30 seconds go by, and we're trying to get all the way down the field. Didn't know that they were going to have time for that last play to Hunter Renfrow. They were going to set up for a field goal or potentially have the clock run out on them. But yeah, absolutely, they have proven over and over again that they can win these big games, and they can do it with coaching and scheming and things like that. And Kirby has not done that as of yet.
You have to burn the 39 seconds in order to mathematically make the 1 second.
Yep.
Okay, so it was all in the plan.
It was a brilliant ruse. We just didn't know it at the time.
So we're talking. Okay, so let me just break this down. Okay, we have Dabo Swinney versus a guy that looks like he complains at all the school board meetings. Like that's just what it is. I hate to say it, and that's just gonna stick with him. And also the fact that he ran a fake punt on his side of the field against Alabama. You can't get over that easy. And I think that is a very big coaching matchup. Kirby's got something. He's got a monkey to get off his back, and I don't know if he can do that against Clemson. It is a clear coaching advantage for Clemson on Saturday.
Now, I will say one of the things that Georgia is looking to do, and one of the things that I think is very key for Clemson, is to avoid having DJU on the ground. I want that number 5 jersey to be the cleanest that it could possibly be after 4 quarters of complete and total World War III on the field. All right, so I want him to be as clean as possible. Now, will it be? Okay, you got a little bit of an undersized Jordan McFadden at left tackle. You've got a stud, I think, in left guard, in Matt Bockhorst, at least veteran-wise. You've got question marks at center, and then you've got some, guys that need more experience, but that definitely have the talent on right guard and right guard, right tackle, Parks and Putnam. So, do you think that Clemson can be successful against and keep their quarterback upright? Because I feel like if they keep their quarterback upright, it is a passing world in college football. Houston.
Oh yeah, I think that one, Clemson was a great pass blocking team to begin with last year.
Right? Yes, exactly.
Great pass blocking team. Can they improve in the run is a huge question. The other thing that people are not kind of looking at is it's deeper. I think the talent that Clemson has brought in on that offensive line, there are some great players that you're going to get to know in the future. Dedrick Pennington, Marcus Tate, Paul Chio. The list goes on and on. Walker Parks, obviously, he's starting. So I think the pass blocking's there. I don't think that's an issue at all. It's can you marry that with a good run game, and I think that will be pleasantly surprised.
I think sacks, and I also throw in turnovers, which Clemson doesn't really have a problem with that. Georgia does. Georgia was -2. Clemson +6 in the turnover margin last year. So I would say Clemson has an advantage in that case if they can keep their quarterback upright. Al?
Yeah, if they can keep him upright, I think the offensive line can. As Houston was saying, I think they've been very good with the pass blocking. I don't think that's an issue. My question is, can the Clemson play calling keep him upright? Because I think you're going to see him run a lot in this game. I think he's almost going to have to. I'm hoping he can just stand there in the pocket all day and find receivers running wide open. But Georgia does have a good defense. We all know that, and we all know that they can play. They're very talented. And if he's got to turn to running the ball, it's going to make a lot of Clemson fans nervous on every play.
That's one thing that was not a factor against Notre Dame in the regular season, which was that he was still kind of nursing a shoulder. They did not want to expose him too much to running the ball.
Right.
All signs are that he's 100% and that he could possibly be that third running back or fourth running back behind Shipley, Pace, and Dixon. Are you looking forward to seeing – does DJ need to have 50-plus yards to 40-plus yards? What do you think, Houston?
I don't think that's necessary. I think the running back room is surprisingly deep. I mean, it's going to be running back per committee, but you got 3, maybe even 4 talented backs that you can get the ball to, pass the ball to. I don't think it's necessary for him to be running up that much. Now, look, he might have a couple big plays. He might. I mean, we saw it last year against Boston College. He's got the capability that if he gets on the outside, he can take it, and he's big. He can truck people. He can do a lot. But I don't think it's necessary for him to have 50 yards in order for Clemson to win.
All right, now I wanted to get into this. This is the meat of my matchup. I just wanted to call this out because this is reality check time for the Georgia Bulldogs. I wish I had another soundboard where I could do a button like reality check. Anyways, all right, so can you stretch the field vertically and horizontally, get the defense out of their normal zones, out of their normal positions, beyond the 10, 20-yard, maybe even further? Which team can do that more successfully? Which team has guys coming back from injury who are relatively healthy, who has an all-star starting wide receiver coming back that has played in huge games even early on in his season, early on in his career? Which team has their superstar wide receiver who is not there? Which team has Burton, ankle, Jackson, knee issues, Smith, as you mentioned, Allen, knee issues, Jack Saint, terrible broken leg against Florida. Guys that are recovering from injury. Smith has had multiple injuries with his legs. These guys' wheels are not brand new off the rack. And I'm saying that Clemson, Ngata, yes, he's been dealing with abdominal issues, but if he can come into this game extremely healthy, Ajo, the great unknown. I know Twitter is already getting on to me about not talking about Ajo, but I think that's where the factor is. Think about it this way. Receiving yards. Last year, 2,499 for Georgia. Clemson, 4,184. Rushing yards. Can you keep up, Georgia? Rushing yards, 1,742. For Clemson, 1,846. Clemson has shown that they can be successful on both sides of the ball. And we said last year was a bad running year. And they still did better than the team that supposedly has the better running core. Al, final thoughts.
Yeah, look, I think we're going to be able to stretch the field better than they are. I think the fact that our receivers, that's going to be the matchup nightmare. I think that's the key matchup I'm looking for. Clemson's wide receivers versus Georgia's secondary. I think they can get open. Again, we talked about it at the beginning of the show. The depth is there. The talent is there. DJ is a great quarterback as far as we all know so far. We've seen it. It's amazing. He's going to have a great year. I actually think he has a very good chance of winning the Heisman this year, which is something a lot of Clemson quarterbacks don't do because they don't get to play so much.
Houston, final score.
Final score on that one, I'm going to take Clemson 31-17.
I've got Clemson 49-28. If Florida can do 41-28, Clemson can do a touchdown more. Give me Clemson to win big, regardless of if Tyler Davis is on the field. Thank you so much for getting in. Hey, that's the end of the show. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and listen to us every Thursday night, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. on The Roar. We want to give a big thank you to our producers at Pronk Studio and to the lovely Ramona over in The Roar's studio as well. That's it for this week. Time to put your orange pajamas on. For Alan, Houston, and myself, Tiger fans, we'll see you at the top of the hill.
Y'all are clear.
All right.
Oh, man.
Oh, well, we had to rush it there a little bit at the end.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're still live right now.
We are.
Oh, we're live.
We're still live right now.
We'll
So
do it live, baby.
if the producers in Pronk will give us our last minute.
Yeah.
If they'll give us our last minute.
I got to get a score prediction in.
We got to get,
Yeah.
Alan, you got to get a
Yeah,
score prediction
dude.
in for the live audience here. Are you, now, obviously I'm blowing it past the spread. So are you blowing it past the spread? Are you okay?
I'm not blowing it past the spread. I am taking the spread. I am taking Clemson to -3. I did have it a lot bigger. I was actually in the same boat as Walt Deptula. I think this Tyler Davis, I almost gave him a touchdown, as a matter of fact. I think I had it 34-24.
The defensive tackle is worth a touchdown?
In typical recruiting or football land, no, it's not. However, we saw the defense with and without Tyler Davis last year, and it was at least a touchdown difference.
Okay.
And now,
James Skalski too.
That's correct. It's at times Skalski was out as well, and it's just a huge jump. I just think the drop off is there to our third string. I like Oro, and I think he's got a good chance to be a decent player. As a matter of fact, I think Brazee having that extra year, the drop off might not be quite as significant. But I'm putting right now. I have Clemson 27, Georgia 23.
And I will say this, the final note, the 8 o'clock note, to leave everyone here. Second quarter is going to be key. That's the last two big games Clemson has been in. They were 28-28. The score was 28-28 with every quarter except for the second quarter. Ohio State went 21-0 in the second quarter. LSU, Clemson was 15-21 against LSU, and the other in the second quarter outscored 21-10. If Clemson, we know that they can hang with the initial fill out. We know that they can make the adjustment after halftime. Can they avoid and hang, or at least give their own punch to the mouth in the second quarter? For me, Clemson wins the second quarter. I think they win the game.
Sounds good to me.
All right, everybody on Facebook and YouTube, if you're still watching, we appreciate you joining in. Make sure you hit the smash, as Houston likes to say, the like button, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow us over on Facebook and on Twitter as well. We do tons of contests for this football season with our sponsors, so we appreciate the love. And we also put out non-live content every single week. So exclusive Clemson content, we got it, and you can see it over on our pages. So go check it out at The Morgan Thomas Show with Big Al in Houston.